Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has given the ambassador of the European Union to Caracas 72 hours to leave the country. 33 states of the US have seen a surge in COVID-19 cases since the easing of restrictions, leading some state governments to reimpose measures. As of Monday, all schools across Tanzania have reopened after 3 months of being shut due to the COVID-19 pandemic. From the headquarters of Teleso English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. And during the awarding of the 2020 Simón Bolívar National Journalism Prize, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro announced that his government will take diplomatic action following revelations regarding the use of the Spanish embassy in Caracas to plan the terrorist incursion of May 3rd with the complicity of the Spanish ambassador.
Venezuela reserves the right to take diplomatic actions against the ambassador of Spain for his participation in the armed incursion in Macoto and his complicity with the criminal acts reported in the Wall Street Journal by Mr. Leopoldo López. More information will be provided in the coming hours.
And the Venezuelan president also condemned a European Union resolution that imposes new sanctions against the country.
The European Union today issued a resolution where the supremacist European Union applies new sanctions to those Venezuelans who, as part of our state's institutions, defend the Constitution, and sanctions the Board of Directors of the Opposition National Assembly because that Board of Directors has refused to follow the orders of the European Union Embassy in Caracas.
And President Maduro announced the expulsion of the European Union's envoy to Venezuela in response to the new sanctions.
Enough is enough. That's why I have decided to give the ambassador of the European Union in Caracas 72 hours to leave our country. And I demand respect from the European Union. Enough European colonialism against Venezuela. Stop the persecution against Venezuela.
This Monday marks the 15th anniversary of the regional integration mechanism known as Petrocaribe. On the occasion of the anniversary, member countries of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America People's Trade Treaty participated in a joint video conference of the political and the economic councils of the bloc. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro announced the strengthening of commitments as well as energy cooperation agreements that will allow for the reduction of existing inequalities in the region.
Because today is 15 years of the creation of this initiative, Petrocaribe. Let's recall our commander, Hugo Chavez, in the year 2005. In the spirit of Alba that had just been born in 2004, it was already visible, an initiative that came with all of the support from the countries of the alliance. And Petrocaribe has had a pivotal role in it. If we recall the crisis of the capitalist system in 2008-2009, thanks to Petrocaribe, along with its supplying capacity, its long-term potential, its flexibility, along with their own funds, and the way that they redistributed their income in the social sectors, we were able to see an initiative that was able to give a support to the most complicated and weak economies of our area. This in the hardest years of that crisis. And Petrocaribe has continued to work regardless of all of the restrictions and sanctions against the Republic of Venezuela, regardless of the siege that we have endured. Petrocaribe is not only alive, but it's also going to have a superior level of coordination as of this meeting.
And Venezuelan Vice President of the Economic Area, Tarek El Assami, outlined the path to be followed in order to achieve a sustainable regional economy during the AlbaTCP Ministerial Council meeting this Monday.
All the ideas that we have gathered in the past months, in the past weeks of hard work, to move forward towards the new system of protection, of production. We have to identify the potentialities of every country in order to achieve a regional economic integration, where we give priority to complementarity, each country producing what would bring them higher benefits, exchanging goods and services with other alternative compensation mechanisms to the Western dominant bank, which badly impacts the economies of our countries. We also have to build and develop the institutional structures. Like I said, Petrocaribe, Alba Bank, in short and mid-term. We have to develop incentives, especially for the productive economy, and we have to be more agile, flexible, and understand the historic moment that our nations are facing, and make way to bilateral cooperation under these instruments that will surely be an example for the rest of the world.
And in other news, Governor of Puerto Rico, Wanda Vázquez, issued a decree establishing the details of the extension of the curfew on the island until July 22nd. The decree establishes that the curfew will run from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. It also highlights the importance of maintaining the measures recommended by the Medical Task Force and Health Secretary. Although Puerto Rico has reported over 7,000 COVID-19 cases and 153 deaths, collective transport services will resume on Wednesday, respecting the regulations established by the Metropolitan Bus and Urban Train Authority. And our correspondent in Havana, Laura Palmero, brings us a roundup of the latest news from the Caribbean region.
Thanks for the contact. Let's start with the most recent stories and news from Caribbean countries. And let's start with Barbados, where the National Insurance Department has already paid over $52 million to those in danger because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
This disclosure came from Prime Minister Mia Mottley on Saturday night as she addressed the virtual GEM Awards to celebrate the 53rd anniversary of the National Insurance Scheme. Mottley told her audience that within recent months, the National Insurance Department had endured the greatest test in its existence, and some of its funds it manages were currently under pressure. Mottley said government had supported the SHEM and urged those to contribute into it to do so now. She noted that the contributions were affordable and the benefits absolutely critical and necessary, especially in these times. Trinidad and Tobago is on phase 5 of its 6-tier plan to relax COVID-19 restrictions. Cuban doctors arrived in Martinique over the weekend to help tackle the COVID-19 pandemic and alleviate the shortage of medical personnel. The doctors were received at the tarmac of the Lamantin airport after taking a special flight chartered by Territorial Collectivity of Martinique. The brigade carried a Cuban flag and had their temperature taken on arrival. They also presented their passport and proof of having tested negative for COVID-19 to airport officials.
Right now, we're really managing the crisis of a delayed care. We have a heavy workload, so they come at a time when the hospital is running at full capacity. And we are a bit worried about the Guyanese crisis, and we might have to reinforce them. That's in the short term. In the long term, we now have a derogation that allows us to work with all the doctors in the world, and not only doctors who have a diploma from outside the European Union. And we want this to be the beginning of a long-term cooperation with Cuba, but also an example for the whole Caribbean, Latin America, or other countries we could work with.
The St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party is challenging the results of the June 5 general elections.
According to party chairman Dr. Terence Drew, 6 petitions have been filed for each constituency except East Basseterre and St. Paul's, which are the only seats they won. This comes as he claimed there were irregularities and illegalities in the polls. No election observer has made such claims. The ruling Team Unity Coalition was victorious in 9 of the 11 seats in the National Assembly.
These are the most recent stories from the Caribbean countries. Thanks for the contact, and let's go back with you in the studio.
And we're taking a very short break now, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The United States has seen a surge in COVID-19 cases since the easing of restrictions, leading some local governments to reimpose measures. Our correspondent Jorge Estoso has the details.
Thank you. Given the alarming spike on coronavirus cases all over the country, we're talking about 33 states showing increases out of the 50. Many governments are taking new measures. For example, in the case of Florida, the beaches of Miami and Fort Lauderdale are going to be closed this coming weekend, the 4th of July. And also the city of Jacksonville has decided that it will be mandatory to use masks. Most definitely the cases now are in the south and in the west. In the most populated states, we're talking California, Texas, and Florida. Most of the hospitals are getting closer to capacity. And definitely there's a change in the position of Vice President Mike Pence. We have seen him on Friday, not necessarily preaching the need of masks, but the day after in Texas, he was wearing a mask and he was saying about the importance of wearing masks. President Trump is not being shown and showing leadership in that case, and we're talking that the cases are in about 126,000 dead and over 2,600,000 contaminated people. The projections are that could reach 200,000 deaths by October. So even the Secretary of Health says that we need to take exactly the precautions to stop this pandemic, because if not, it's going to get out of hand, especially in the case of the young people, because they're not respecting the recommendations. We get back to you now.
The world has now registered over 10 million cases of the COVID-19 virus as the pandemic continues to spread. According to data provided by the World Health Organization during an international conference from its headquarters in Geneva, more than 10.3 million cases have now been reported and over 500,000 deaths. The novel coronavirus pandemic continues to be one of the biggest challenges that humanity has faced in recent decades, with new waves of infection being reported as different countries seek to reopen their economies. Coronavirus restrictions are being tightened in Serbia as more high-profile figures become infected. Several towns are now considered COVID-19 hotspots in the country. The city of Kragujevac, home to around 200,000 people, announced a state of emergency after reporting hundreds of new cases in just a few days. Serbia's Defence Minister Aleksandar Vulin and the Speaker of the National Assembly, Maja Gojkovic, have both tested positive for the coronavirus. On Saturday, former Serbian football player and manager Elija Petkovic died of COVID-19, while tennis star Novak Djokovic has also tested positive, sparking fears of a second wave of infections in the country.
Citizens must learn to live with the coronavirus. It won't be eradicated until a vaccine is developed, since it is constantly returning. If a certain part of the population has to catch it, our goal is for not all of us to get sick at the same time, so that the health system can withstand the pressure.
In Scotland, non-essential stores were reopened on Edinburgh's main shopping street after being closed for more than 3 months.
Shops, but I think if we look at the period we're in just now, we're not buying things that we're probably buying things that we're going to wear every day. So we're buying more leisure wear because we're in the house all the time, rather than evening wear, which we maybe only wear 5 times a year. But because of that, we're wearing it out quicker.
Yeah, so I think the tourism aspect will be impacted by the sort of lockdown measures that are still in place. We're trading very well in local stores, so what we're seeing is a lot of people shopping in more local stores, less coming into the city centres, but over time that'll pick back up. We're just working through plans now to optimise our sales to our core customers who live in and around the area and who will be coming in every day of the week. But yeah, it's going to be quiet for some time.
The United Kingdom's negotiator for Brexit met with his EU counterparts in Brussels this Monday for another week of talks. These were the first face-to-face meetings on Brexit since the coronavirus pandemic started. The meetings will alternate on a weekly basis between Brussels and London throughout the summer, as the UK works towards achieving a deal as soon as possible. Tempers flared in recent days after British Prime Minister Boris Johnson insisted on Saturday that the UK was ready to accept the consequences of a no-deal Brexit if common ground cannot be found. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced further funding for what he called the ecological conversion of the French economy. The announcement came during a climate convention meeting at the presidential palace.
The state will take on its full share. That is why, as part of the recovery plan that we are preparing, an additional 15 billion euros over 2 years will be injected into the ecological conversion of our economy. We are going to set up a fund for the ecological transformation of our economy in the recovery plan.
Exit polls from Sunday's presidential election in Poland show that incumbent President Andrzej Duda won a majority of votes. Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski stands in second place. Around 63% of over 30 million eligible voters headed to polling stations on Sunday, with 11 candidates in the running for the presidency. According to the Polish constitution, the candidate who secures over 50% of the vote will be declared the winner. However, if no candidate achieves this threshold, those in the first two positions would go to a runoff vote on July 12th. Official results are expected between Tuesday and Wednesday. More stories coming up after this very short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. As of Monday, all schools across Tanzania have reopened after 3 months of being shut due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
As teachers, we are making sure we are following all the guidelines set by our Ministry of Health in ensuring that we are protecting our students and ourselves as teachers against COVID-19. For example, we are making sure that everyone wears masks and also that we have enough clean water tanks with sanitizers in the school compound. We are also making sure that both teachers and students are respecting 1 meter social distancing in class, so as to avoid any spread in case someone has the coronavirus.
Moving to Senegal, residents are up in arms about real estate projects that threaten a historic landmark in the capital, Dakar. According to residents, since the early 2000s, the Mamelis Hills, located on Dakar's coastline, have been the target of developers looking to build hotels and resorts along the coast.
We also denounce the occupation of the coastline, which belongs to everyone. Everywhere in the world, a coastline is a common property, whether it is in Africa, America, Europe, everywhere. A coastline serves everyone. Why then do a few privileged people think that only they have the right to access the coast, to privatize it, to close it, and allow only themselves and their families to access it, to the detriment of other Senegalese people? That is why this is a common and global fight. We grew up on this site. It's part of our history. It's part of our culture, the lighthouse of the Mamels. So it's important for us to preserve this site. And while we are here, we are going to try to defend it. We are going to try to preserve it.
Zimbabwe has suspended trade on the local stock exchange and mobile money transfers in order to protect its currency. Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Information, Nick Mangwana, said on Sunday that mobile money transfer platforms were causing a gap between the market exchange rate for the Zimbabwean dollar and the official exchange rate. The official added that owners of mobile-based systems were conspiring with the help of the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange to facilitate illicit activities that are sabotaging the economy.
In Zimbabwe, and maybe one other country only, is where you will find somebody opening an account through a phone company, and it becomes an account for transferring money, for transacting with. So, under normal circumstances, the Reserve Bank monitors the movement of money between accounts and so forth. But mobile phone companies are under quotas. They are not with the Reserve Bank. And in this particular case, investigations have discovered that there are transactions that have nothing to do with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe.
Human rights associations in Morocco, along with the Sahrawi NGO Equipe Media, have denounced the arrest of sub-Saharan migrants in the cities of Laayoune and Tafaya after they were accused by authorities of being behind the COVID-19 outbreak in the region. According to the organisations, these arrests represent the reality of discrimination faced by black Western Saharan citizens in the disputed territory, which is partially controlled by Morocco. Reportedly, citizens are being arrested on the streets or even in their own homes to allegedly test them for the novel coronavirus. The situation worsened after 33 COVID-19 cases were discovered among 70 migrants who arrived to the Canary Islands, along with another 37 who were rescued in Tafaya. Thousands of people have fled their homes in northwest Myanmar as fighting between the army and insurgents intensifies. The United Nations has called for civilians to evacuate the conflict-racked area to save lives. The Myanmar military has been battling against the Arakan army, an insurgent group seeking autonomy for ethnic Rakhine Buddhists in the states of Rakhine and Chin since January last year. At least 30 people died and a dozen are missing after a ferry capsized in Bangladesh. 23 bodies have been recovered so far by rescue workers. The sunken ship was hit by another ferry at Farashganj, just metres from the country's largest river port. Several witnesses told local television stations that the boat was carrying more than 50 people, with many stuck inside cabins. Ferry accidents are common in Bangladesh due to poor safety standards. Pakistan's Interior Minister has announced that an investigation was launched after Baloch separatists opened fire and heard a grenade at the Pakistani Stock Exchange in Karachi, killing 6 people.
This morning, a few terrorists who were armed with Kalashnikovs and automatic weapons attacked the Stock Exchange building. They first came to the parking lot and tried to attack from there. The law enforcement agencies intercepted them. As the first terrorist tried to get in, he was killed. But his accomplices managed to get in, and in the crossfire, all 4 terrorists were killed. I assure that the way our intelligence and law enforcement agencies have destroyed these terrorist networks, their bases, and their masterminds, similarly, we will dismantle them again. An investigation has been launched, and very soon we will reach their masterminds.
Now we've come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.